Hello there and welcome once again to The Verdict. I'm Mick Cornett along with Kent Myers. We're here every week, as you know, meeting interesting people and dealing with topical issues. And today we're going to revisit a topic that is just as relevant today as it was the first time we discussed it.
Yes, so we're going to talk about the organization Oklahoma Lawyers for Children and what they're doing. We've had Tsinena Thompson on before, but we're having her back with the chairman of the board as well, Alisa White, to talk about what Oklahoma Lawyers for Children is doing, what projects it has on the drawing board, what kind of impact it's having on the youngest victims of child abuse and neglect. And we think you'll find it very interesting.
Absolutely. It's all coming up today on The Verdict. We'll be right back.
I like the idea of improvisation and starting with not a preconceived idea. All of my work is about visual images taken from my memory. I'm Brenda Kingery. I am an artist and I'm a proud Chickasaw. One time I said, "Oh God, please don't let me die with my paintings in the closet." And what I would want them to be is everywhere. I would want them to be loved, to be used, to be respected. You work your whole life doing this. You just keep going as long as you can. And I have such a good background with a 106-year-old grandmother that I've always thought in my mind I would just paint till I'm 106. My Chickasaw heritage has become a primary part of my life. And the reason is, it's a place I call home.
See more stories about the Chickasaw people at profilesofenation.com.
Hello there, Mick Cornett back on the set of The Verdict along with Kent Myers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guests.
Today it's a particular privilege for me to introduce the two guests we have. On my right is Tsinena Bruno Thompson, the President and Chief Executive Officer of Oklahoma Lawyers for Children. Tsinena did her undergraduate work and her law work at Oklahoma City University. She's been in her position now with Oklahoma Lawyers for Children since 2010. She is actively involved in a number of other activities relating to children, and she was the founder of the Oklahoma Bar Association section on juvenile law. Tsinena, welcome back.
Thank you.
We're sure glad to have you.
Well, it's nice to be here.
On my left is the boss of bosses at Oklahoma Lawyers for Children. It's Alisa Shaddix White. Alisa Shaddix White, excuse me, Alisa.
That's okay.
She did her law work and undergraduate work both at the University of Oklahoma. She has worked as a prosecutor defending children in Pottawatomie County. She is now a staff attorney at Farmers Insurance, but was fairly recently elected as chairman of the board of Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, and that shows you what our organization thinks about her leadership skills. This is her first visit to The Verdict. Sure glad to have you. Welcome.
Thanks, Kent. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, Alisa, why'd you get involved in Lawyers for Children? What called you to this position?
Well, I first became aware of the need for an organization like Lawyers for Children when I worked at the juvenile shelter in Norman. That was the place where when the police picked up the kids from whatever really harmful event had just occurred, they took the kids to the shelter while they worked out placements and figuring out where the kids needed to be placed. I worked there just as a house parent, playing with the kids, holding them when they were crying, being there just as that intermediary spot while they figured out what the next step was.
And that could take minutes, hours, days?
Oh, at that time it was weeks.
Oh my goodness.
Because you'd have to get all the paperwork turned into DHS for them to find out where the appropriate placement could be.
Yeah.
Now there's, under the Pinnacle plan, that's changed, but at that time, we would really develop incredible relationships with these kids that were there really for weeks and sometimes months.
And if a kid was, if it's during the school year, could a kid attend school? How did all that take place? I mean, when a kid's in that holding pattern, I'll call it, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, the shelter had a school in it. So we had a teacher from the community that would come every day, and she'd pick up where they were. So we would have maybe a first grader, and then a fourth grader, fifth grader, seventh grader, a couple ninth graders, whatever.
Yeah.
We had one teacher for the shelter, and we had a very normal schedule where they would go to school from 8 to noon, and then they would come into the shelter and we'd feed them lunch, and then they'd go back to class. Now, as you're kind of aware, they would come and go to counseling appointments or whatever they needed to do, or court dates. But we had a school on site.
I see.
Well, what got you involved with Oklahoma Lawyers for Children? How did that come about?
Well, so I saw the need that these kids need somebody on their team all the time. And as many people as you can get on their team, they need it. There's not one too many person on a kid's team. So I went to law school, became a prosecutor in Pottawatomie County, like you mentioned. Now, Lawyers for Children doesn't really service Pottawatomie County, but we get a trickling out there. And I saw the good that Lawyers for Children was doing on those cases. And so I moved into the private sector. Like you said, I started with farmers, and then it was a no-brainer. Once I moved to the private sector, I was the first to sign up for Lawyers for Children, and I've been representing them since about 2009.
Yeah.
Well, the organization and the board obviously recognized your leadership skills and your commitment to elect you to the top position.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Well, I know that's true.
I would clean toilets for Lawyers for Children.
I don't expect you to necessarily agree with it, but it's true.
What are the principal duties of chairman of the board?
Well, it's to lead the board, but the board's duties are to develop our long-term strategic planning goals, oversee our financials, build our relationships in the community, and make sure that our volunteers in our organization is adhering to the standards that we have.
Now, do you have to be a lawyer to be on the board of Lawyers for Children?
No, we have non-lawyers. Absolutely. We'll take anyone. Anyone that wants to give, we'll take them. We've got a place for them.
And is the need less than it was in 2009, or is it greater today than it was when you first got involved in 2009?
Oh, I think there's always a need. We have a lot of changes in the court system, and Tsinena will talk about that probably in a little bit, but the need is, as long as there's one child in custody, there is a need there, and the need is great.
Tsinena, let me ask some of the same questions to you. We'll start out with just an approximate number of how many children there are in custody now.
Well,
in Oklahoma County.
In Oklahoma County, there's over 2,000 children in custody. The number changes every day because some children are allowed to go home, some children's cases close, and then other children may have new children born into their case. So that is a number that's very, very dynamic and changes daily. But yes, that's our overall number right now.
Well,
how did you first get involved?
Yeah.
I was going to ask when you first were aware of the organization.
Well, I first became a volunteer in 1998. Shortly after the organization was founded, Don Nicholson, who is Kent's co-founder of the organization, came to our law firm and was talking and recruiting to various attorneys there, and I happened to be in the conference room and saw that file and couldn't turn it down.
And so you were handed your first sort of case or opportunity?
That's whenever I got my first case and stayed with that young lady for several years.
But now you've converted your activity to full-time on Lawyers for Children. Tell us about how that came about and when did it happen?
Well, I guess I was just in the right place at the right time. The leadership for Oklahoma Lawyers for Children had changed. That was in 2010. And whenever I came on board, I really had some pretty big shoes to fill. There had been some remarkable leaders. I was lucky enough that the board selected me to do this, and it has been a remarkable job, probably the very best job I've ever had in my life.
Tell us where the office is located and what is the relationship between Lawyers for Children and Oklahoma City University Law School.
Well, we were lucky enough to be the only nonprofit outside of the university to be asked to move into the new OCU Law School building, which is downtown on 8th and Robinson. 8th and Harvey in Robinson. So that's where our new offices are. It is a beautiful building and provides us with a wonderful opportunity to engage young lawyers into pro bono service opportunities. And the experience there has just been great. The university has embraced us. It's very nice to be back in the heart of the legal community downtown, where we are around so many of the volunteer attorneys that support our mission.
And that's your alma mater.
It is, it is. And between the university's needs and our growing needs for our programs, we're very, very excited to kind of have a strategic relationship with OCU School of Law and Oklahoma Lawyers for Children to serve children's organizations, the juvenile court system, and other nonprofits that help children.
There's probably some viewers out there that are not aware that this organization even existed. Let's back up a second. Explain the need. Why does a young person need an attorney in the situation that they found themselves in?
Well, a lot of people don't understand that, and we get that question frequently. But in Oklahoma, our statutes require that every child, whenever they're picked up and placed into protective custody, has an attorney. From the moment they come into custody, they are required to have an attorney.
That's not always been the case in Oklahoma County.
Correct. But now what happens is that we have wonderful juvenile public defenders. Unfortunately, there's only 5. And we have a tremendous caseload of children. And so our organization was founded to help that need, because children's cases with only, just a handful, and at the time we were founded, there was even less than a handful of public defenders. We needed volunteer attorneys to be able to come in and help the representation so these children's cases didn't languish.
Well, prior to Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, what was typical? What could have happened without the legal representation for the minor?
Well, the child's case would just languish. Parents' interests and the state's interests would be represented, but the children's interests
wouldn't. So a custody battle, or a parent might, dealing with their own legal issues, and a child's needs and wants were not represented in the court?
Well, custodial issues are a little bit different from the deprived cases, and deprived meaning that the child's been removed from their home because of abuse or neglect. And these take place in the juvenile court rather than the family court. So we don't get involved in family law issues, but often you'll find that there will be some trickle over from families that are suffering and having problems. They may not be taking proper care of their kids, and so the children may end up in custody.
And is there a minimum age that Lawyers for Children handles a case? I mean, could it be a newborn?
Absolutely. We have many newborns. We represent children all the way up to 18, and if they remain in custody after they turn 18, we continue to represent them.
We're going to have to take a break. We've reached our first segment here, but Tsinena Thompson and Alisa Shaddix White are our guests today. We're talking about the Oklahoma Lawyers for Children. We'll be back with more after this.
I didn't know that there were abandoned oil well sites on the property, but it turns out there were 3 of them. We saw those commercials, but never did we ever dream that it was going to happen out here. OARB came out and they cleaned up these old sites for us. And when you look at what they've done, it's absolutely fantastic. This whole plan out here is for the grandkids and just generations to come. The process is simple. Pick up the telephone. It's worth a phone call. Trust me, it's worth it.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
Welcome back to the set of the verdict. We are talking about Oklahoma Lawyers for Children.
Tsinena, I want to harken back to your position as president and CEO of the organization. Kind of outline what your principal duties are. How do you spend your day? What activities do you get involved in this leadership position?
Well, of course, recruiting the volunteers is a primary function. Training our volunteers, because so many of them don't really have any knowledge about juvenile law before coming to try and help our organization. So we do a lot of training for our volunteers.
Why do you do the training?
Oh, well, a couple of reasons. Because one, we want to ensure that children have the very finest representation possible. And then also our statute now requires that every volunteer that comes in and has a regular docket practice have 6 hours of juvenile law training each year.
You get lawyers from all segments of the practice of law, criminal law, civil law, whatever it may be. Those folks don't necessarily know anything about juvenile law. How do you conduct your training?
Well, we have CLEs that we do, continuing legal education. And we provide our new volunteers with basic training in juvenile law so they understand the process, the different stages of a juvenile and deprived case. Then we also have specialized topics dealing with certain things that can happen in a juvenile case. You know, deposing the expert medical witness on shaken baby syndrome, or handling the sexual abuse cases, topical things that have need for specialized training. So that's a big function of what we do. Mm-hmm. And then we are not supported by tax dollars or other types of county funding or state funding, so we do a lot of fundraising in our organization. So the fundraising, the day-to-day management of the operation. I'm also in court a lot with our children, in court with our volunteers, helping them as they get comfortable in a new juvenile case. Those are my primary functions.
Alisa, what are the principal projects you guys are working on today?
Well, we always have projects. We have lots and lots of projects. We were just joking during the break that what's going on in OLFC changes on a day-to-day basis. Right now, our principal projects are we're working with OCU Law School to develop some kind of practicum. Now we're in the very, very beginning stages of that. So we're not sure exactly how that's going to look, but we're excited about that opportunity and that partnership with OCU Law School. In addition, right now we're really recruiting mentors, and these are non-lawyer mentors to come into Lawyers for Children. The juvenile judges have approached Lawyers for Children and asked that we provide a mentor for every child in custody that's between the age of 14 and 17. And that's a big ticket.
Well, the mentor program falls in line with a new program that we have, which is our attorney guardian ad litem program. Yep. And we started that a year ago as a pilot program where we represented a number of age groups throughout certain cases. But where the court felt like that we could be of the best service to children was between the ages of 14 to 18, or 17 and 363 days. Because those children are at greater risk for dropping out of school, having more problems. They're more likely to age out of this foster care system without having permanency, meaning that they're going to be reunified with parents, adopted, or into a guardianship. And so with that program, where we have attorney guardian ad litems that represent this age group, there was also the need to really have some additional mentoring and help these children with life skills. A lot of that happens that they just miss from bouncing through the foster care system.
Let me back up just a minute. Alisa, we basically have described thus far 3 different positions that Lawyers for Children may furnish to one child.
Right.
The attorney for the child, the guardian ad litem for the child if necessary,
right,
and the mentor
right.
to the child. Can you, without getting into too much detail, can you describe what the differences are between those 3 positions?
Yeah, sure. And it's complicated, but also very easy to understand. One is the attorney for the child. And as Tsinena explained earlier, every child has the right to an attorney. And it's not the state, because the state is representing the state of Oklahoma. So the DA's office is representing the state of Oklahoma. The mother's attorney is representing the mother, and every father involved has their own attorney. And it's only natural that the child has an attorney to represent them as well. So that's the attorney role that we fill. The second role that we're developing now is the guardian ad litem program. And the juvenile judges have asked us to provide a GAL, that's the abbreviation for it, where you come in and you actually report to the court.
The guardian ad litem does?
Yes.
So it's a different role?
It's a different role. It's not the role of the attorney. Let's say you have a 15-year-old that is dead set on going home. Well, the attorney needs to represent the wishes of that 15-year-old. But the guardian ad litem can go in and tell the court, look, I've talked to teachers, I've talked to family members, I've talked to neighbors, I've seen all the doctors and the therapists, and it's not a good idea. And that's the role of the guardian ad litem.
I see.
It's best interests.
Yes.
Now, you must need a lot of volunteers to kind of help coordinate all this.
We always need volunteers. And we don't need just attorney volunteers. We need non-attorney volunteers, and that is what we were talking about just a minute ago with the mentors. We would love to provide every child over the age of 14 in custody a mentor to teach them those life skills. So if they happen to age out of custody, and nobody wants to age out of custody, they want to be adopted or be in a forever home before they age out. But if that's what happens, we want a mentor, a solid rock there that they can continue to lean on and has taught them how to create a budget, how to shop for nutritious food, how to apply for jobs, how to talk in an interview.
Well, Tsinena, tell us how many lawyer volunteers you have now, and approximately, and how many non-lawyer volunteers do you have?
Well, right now we have a little over 1,200 attorney volunteers.
1,200?
1,200.
Just in Oklahoma County?
Just in Oklahoma County.
Wow.
Well, some of those are in Cleveland County but practice in Oklahoma County. But that's our number overall. And then 300 plus non-lawyer volunteers. And you know, people say, well, gosh, that is a great number to have, but what you have to understand is our volunteers are practicing attorneys. And so we have to have a very large volunteer pool for those volunteers to be able to take a case whenever it fits within their schedule.
Do most of your attorney volunteers have more than one case at a time, or are they usually concentrating on one child at a time?
Some have a couple of cases. They may pick up another case as they know that one case is getting ready to close. Or if there is a case that comes in that looks like it's going to have a very short need, then they'll pick up an extra case. But we try to be mindful of our volunteers' time and not overtax any of our volunteers.
Well, let's be mindful of our viewers' time and remind them how they can get involved. If someone feels called to be a part of this, what should they do?
Well, call us. Our office number is 232-CHILD, which is 232-4453, or you can contact us on our website, which is www.olfc.org. The volunteer opportunities are listed out there, and also ways to reach out and come be involved with our organization.
Well, thank you so much. And
thank you. Appreciate it.
The citizens of Oklahoma City and Oklahoma County are very fortunate to have two ambassadors for such a worthwhile program. So thanks for coming on our show and telling people more about it.
Thank you. Pleasure.
All right, Kent and I'll have a final word when we get back.
There are now 11 million of us who live here and work here. I was 15 when I came here 6 years ago. I raised my family here. I drive my truck to my job every day. The only difference between now and 6 years ago, I do it legally. I wanted to. Because this is my home.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23 child.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
I think for us, once we got started and we began to see the tremendous need just within our state, it really was just a calling for us. The blessings far outweigh any obstacles that we've faced.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information. And for almost 30 years, Oklahoma political, government, and business leaders have turned to the McCarville Report for accurate, reliable, inside information. Visit the McCarville Report online.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. We're wrapping up the show on Oklahoma Lawyers for Children.
Yeah, our guest today told about an organization that's doing fine work in Oklahoma County and sometimes beyond, but they get no state funding. They have to raise all the money they have to carry out their duties. And in that connection, I would like to tell our viewers that they have their principal fundraiser October 30th this year, and you can learn about it on the website that we will give you in just a second. But I encourage you to check out that website, see if there's a place for you. There probably is. In Lawyers for Children, we can use everybody one way or another. Don't have to be a lawyer to be involved. And we can also use your help in raising funds.
There is a website where you can get more information on the gala and also how you can be a volunteer. It's OLFC.org. That's OLFC.org. And we have a website. We'd love for you to go to our website about the verdict and tell us about a guest that you'd like to see or a subject matter that you think needs a broader community-wide discussion. That's what we're here for. So, for Kent Myers, I'm Mick Cornett. Thank you so much for joining us on The Verdict. We'll be back here next week with another show, and I'll remind you that'll be our 750th show.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and they said it wouldn't last.
I don't think I'll shave between now and then.
We'll see you next week.